Once upon a time, there was this gentleman who knocks on his son's door. Jamie, he says, wake up. And Jamie answers, I don't want to get up, Papa. And the father shouts, get up, you have to go to school. And Jamie says, I don't want to go to school. Why not? asks the father. 3 reasons, Jamie says. First, because it's so dull. Second, the kids tease me. And third, I hate school. And the father says, well, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you must go to school. First, because it's your duty. Second, because you're 45 years old. And third, because you're the headmaster. Now wake up. You're too big to be asleep. I love that story. I think it's great. It works on lots of different levels. So if you want to take it literally, yeah, it's a good story. But really it speaks to one of the core problems that we have in life. And so the question I'm going to ask you today is, would you like to awaken? And it's a big question, because oftentimes it's easier to stay asleep, even though it's quite detrimental in many ways. But it is easier. It's the path of least resistance with quite destructive outcomes. Now, if you do want to awaken, well, I would ask you to continue to listen to this. And all you need to do to start this whole journey towards awakening is to ask yourself one simple question. Who am I? 3 words with a question mark. Who am I? And who are you? Really? Are you your name? So am I Stephen? Are you your job? Am I a senior director at Circle? Are you your accomplishments? Are you that gold medal winner? Are you your bank balance? Are you $100,000? €1 million? Are you your hair colour? Are you your past? Are you the story that you tell about yourself? Who am I? And so those questions, for most of our lives, the default answer we give them is yes. Yes, I am my name. Yes, I am Stephen. Yes, I do this. Yes, I do have brown hair that's going grey. Yes, I am all of these things. And we identify with all of these external labels or externalities, and we take exception to oftentimes any attack or any perceived slight on them. So someone comes along and says, your hair is awful. Oh my God, I can't believe she said that to me about my hair. And then you get a promotion and nobody asks you about it, or your friend doesn't. And it's like, that guy is so insensitive. He never even asks me about this. Or you have somebody who just drives out in front of you. Oh, look at this guy. Like, what's he doing? Like, I can't believe he's actually... Oh. And so we have all this sense of attachment that you're a great driver and you wouldn't do that, but this guy did. And I can't believe that. What an idiot. What a moron. Right? I don't think there's anyone who hasn't at some point had that experience in life. And the reason being is that we identify with all these labels that we put upon ourselves, that we're good drivers and we're good listeners and we've got nice hair and we've got nice eyes and we've got nice this and that. And then someone comes along and they have their own sense of what they think is nice or what's important, or they're going to behave in a certain way. And you have this heightened expectation based on the story that you've told yourself about what should occur in the world. And when it doesn't, explosion time. You blow your top. I can't imagine that's strange or alien to anybody. And eventually, you'll realize that the life you've been building is a cage, because you're trapped within all of these beliefs and expectations and things that you cling on desperately to for a multitude of different reasons. And I know this because I reached this point. I've lived that experience. And back in 2017, I spent 5 years working at Facebook. And I remember one day being called in for a presentation for managers, right? This actually happened. They showed us a single slide with a recruitment funnel. So a hiring funnel. Imagine a funnel wide at the top, narrows down towards the end. And at the top were all the applications that they received for all the jobs across a time period. And there were tens, if not hundreds of thousands of applications. And then at the very bottom, after all the interview stages, you had 100,000 people who applied, but only, 1,000 made it past the screening. And then bit by bit, you funnel it down. Until at the very bottom, there was a number that was less than 1% of people who applied were hired. This, they told us, is the elite. So if you are in this room because you've been hired at this best company in the world, then you are part of the elite. And I believed that. At the time, I believed that. And I did so because I had so many insecurities. So many neuroses and so many issues. And for a year, I walked through the world convinced that I was better than 99% of the people around me. And I believed it because I wanted to. Because I was in too much pain not to believe it. And look, the presentation said it. They told us, I'm one of the elite, right? And it was only when the weight of that identity became unbearable that things changed for me. And it was so disjointed and so disconnected from my true self. Now, I'm not denying it. And it's not like, when someone does something they can't believe or they don't want to face and they say, I have no idea who that person was when they describe themselves. Or they say, I didn't recognize that person, even though it's you. But that elite year was an arrogant aspect of me and my personality. And I have had to face that. In 2018, my entire concept of who I was just came crashing down. And it was only when I was confronted with so many distasteful aspects of myself that I didn't want to face. After I'd built up my own personal, Tower of Babel or Babel for the corporate world. That's the story from the book of Genesis in the Bible. And it was only when that was built and then it started to fall down and crumble, that's when my life truly began to shift. And that's when I realized that the world we live in is a subjective scaffold of objects and attachments. They're things that we cling to. And that scaffold is built to support the structure of who you think you are. And it's also built to obscure the view of who you actually are. The reason that scaffold goes up is so you don't have to face the angry, arrogant, prideful, manipulative, selfish, dark parts of yourself. And the longer you don't face them, the further away you get from who you actually are. Because it's not about renouncing and trying to cast away all of these parts of you. They're always going to be in there. It's about bringing them into the light. But it's hard to face up to who we are at our core when we're so focused on who we are on the surface, because we're so attached to our sense of who we are that we present to the world. And I'd love if you could imagine a building that's being built, that's being erected, right? So the foundations are dug and then the brickwork is laid and the pipes are installed and everything that you need that goes into a building is there as that building is going up. And all around the building, a scaffold is erected. And as more and more floors are added, more and more scaffolding is required. And from the outside, we'll marvel at this construction. The brilliance of the engineering and just the sheer capability from a human perspective to be able to build something so grand, so magnificent. And we love these monuments of human achievement. Bigger, bigger, bigger. Now, imagine you're standing inside the building, looking out. What do you see? You'll see metal, you'll see dust, you'll see cranes, you'll have an obstructed view. It's probably plastic on the window to protect it. You'll see lines of steel that kind of jut across the windows from the scaffolding. And eventually, if you stay there and look out long enough, you'll get so tired of the obstructed view and the building that's going on that you'll eventually say, oh, to hell with another floor. I just want to live. I want clean windows. I want that crane to be gone. I want a view. I want to sit in the peace of my own home. We all know that feeling. And that's what you really want. You want peace. And you want to be at home within yourself. And the inside of that building is your true self. And the scaffolding and the floors, that's your ego. And the ego is both the blocker and the way. It's not the enemy. Okay? People will tell you that. Ego is the enemy. Ego is the structure that allows us to actually function in the world. We do need it. Because it's the seat at the center of the conscious personality, in the same way that the self, and we'll get to that, is the seat at the center of the unconscious personality. You have the conscious part of your personality, which is primarily identified with the ego, let's say, and that's the one that thinks, that actively, consciously goes through the day. But you've also got an unconscious part. That's the bit inside you that's doing things for you that you might not even know or might not even recognize. And that wants to have its say as well. That wants to be realized. And when I talk about all of this, ego and self and all, it's all just conceptualized so that humans can understand this a bit better. There is no actual ego. It's a concept. And it helps us understand it. So if you want to get that view, you have to be willing to work with the scaffolding, with the ego, because the ego obstructs us from seeing who we truly are, and simultaneously, it's going to be the torch that lights the way on the path to finding out who we are. So the ego gets in the way, but the ego is the way. That's one of the great paradoxes. And you need the ego to build a scaffold up. That's what you do in the first half of your life as you start to gain security and status and relevance. But around about the midway in life, you're going to be asked to take that scaffold down. And if you don't answer that call, it's going to have a real impact on the rest of your life. And this is the work. This is your life's work as you navigate this, shifting relationship between the ego and the self at different stages of psychic growth. And it's harder than any work that you will have ever done in your life. Because people don't want a cure. They don't want to do this. They just want some relief. Because a cure is painful. So distract me, medicate me, do whatever. Just don't let me have to think and come to terms with who I actually am. Because I might hate what I see. And there's one of the great classics of Indian spirituality, the Bhagavad Gita. And in that it says, it is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. So it's better to live your own destiny imperfectly. And you can only ever live your own destiny. Nobody can do this for you, because what any person truly needs to know, nobody can teach them. Remember that. Don't put your reliance on somebody else. And they often talk about this, the finger pointing at the moon. We're all looking at the finger instead of the moon. And the moon is the self. That's where you want to get to. That's what really matters. But along the way, you've got people distracting you with the finger, selling you something, books, courses, podcasts, all these different things that make you think that that's where you're focused. You think you're focused on the moon, but you're not. You're focused on the finger that's pointing at the moon. So you need to go on your journey. You need to do your work. Nobody else can do that for you. And just remember that there isn't a thing out of place in the universe, even if that reality is painful. Because if anything could have been done differently, then you and I or somebody else would have done it differently. So everything is exactly where it needs to be. And that's a great starting point of acceptance. And what all the great mystics have been trying to tell us is this. And it's what Jesus meant when he said, if any of you want to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross and follow me. So you must give up your own way. If you compare that to the Gita, you have to live your own destiny. It's on you, because anything you ever understand or realize or awaken from will awaken within you. Has to be you. Can't be somebody else. So Jesus is saying in this case, give up your own way. So don't get bogged down by the low level ways of the world. The attachment to the story you tell yourself. And yet we become conditioned and limited by the people who are around us. Society, our parents, our friends, school, the education system, manipulative content creators, teachers, and then just our own insecurities and limitations. So when Jesus says, give up your own way, it means letting go of the false foundations, dismantling the scaffolding, recognizing it's not about the money, it's not about the need to be right, it's not about your pride. And taking up your cross isn't about suffering for the sake of it. It's about the hard work of dismantling, piece by piece, all of the things that you've built up, even though that's painful. And that's a new way of seeing, and it's a new way of being. And it's going on the journey for you to discover the real you on your terms and learning how to be. That's what it's all about. So what's left when the scaffold comes down? Well, essence. And again, I talked earlier about concepts. I couldn't possibly describe the wonder and the wonderment of the world, of the universe, of everything that's around us. These are all just concepts to describe whether it's God, the source, the creative energy. It is so great and so overwhelmingly incredible that you couldn't possibly do it justice with an alphabet. So we're not going to try. But when I talk about it, just for the simplest way, I call it the cosmic universal energy. And that is the thing that has given life to all of this, inside you and outside of you. And it's beyond description, but it runs through all of us. It's been here for forever, and it expresses itself uniquely through each of us. And that's why you are unique, just like everyone else. You are unique, just like everyone else. And we keep encountering paradoxes. It's great. And this is the great mystery. And it's the arrogance of the human mind to need to know and to touch something for it to be real. It's not. It's an intuitive thing. It's a feeling thing. And we need the humility and grace of our souls to lean back into what I call the beanbag of being. That's the phrase I use. So if you could picture the most comfortable, cozy beanbag you've ever seen in your life, and you just fall back into it, and it molds its way around you, and you hear the crunch and the sound, and you just lie there and take everything in, and you just experience the energy. That's what it's like, except it's not, because it's infinitely greater than that. And so it's important, as we wrap this up, to focus on what Plato said, right? Plato said, when we think we're learning, it's really just the recovery of our own knowledge. And that's the knowledge we had before we were born. That's the logos or the cosmos. And it's what John says in the gospel. The beginning of the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So don't get too hung up on God. But there's something out there that was there before us and will be there after us. And when we're born, We're born whole and we're born pure and we're connected directly to that. And we start to move away. And then we forget what we knew. And that's what we're trying to get back. Some people might call this enlightenment. Enlightenment, I think, is a really dangerous word because it just becomes another thing for the ego to latch onto and to create another layer of belief. I'm enlightened. Now I'm so enlightened. Now I'm more enlightened than everybody else. And nobody is enlightened like me. And next thing you're in the throes of the ego again. And it just becomes a big ego swing and contest. So if you want to call it awakening, do. That is just awakening to who you actually are and the energy at the center of you. I personally like to think of it as returning home, returning back to myself. Because I go out on the journey, you go on the journey, we lose ourselves for a while and then we try to return home. That's like getting back to that apartment and you return home and you've got that view and you're at peace. Returning back to who you are, the way you were when you were a newborn, in spirit, and fully connected with that cosmic universal energy. So forget the snake pits and the bear traps and the pitfalls of YouTubers trying to get wealthy off your desperation. It's not in another course. It's in the quiet of the deepest part of yourself. If you can get in contact with that and recognize who you are, answer the question, who am I? If you can really truly solve that, everything in your life falls into place. You will have a perspective shift like you didn't think possible. And that's what we want to get. And the practice is simple, but it's definitely not easy. And the practice is this: sit still, meditate, and breathe in and out. And that's all free. And that's all you need. Begin your journey of awakening. Ask yourself the only question that truly matters, and ask it over and over and over and over until only the truth remains. Who am I?